Hey, this is Kourtakis, and I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Michigan, but I work with high achieving individuals all over the world and help them find their best individual selves and accomplish the goals that they're looking to accomplish. One of the things that came up in a couple of sessions that I've had this past week was actually two different folds, but over the same topic, and it's on the topic of personal boundaries. And before I continue, make sure you hit that like button down after you're done with this video if you like it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've got more content coming. And make sure you leave comments down there if there's something you want to see or if you agree with this video or you don't agree with this video. But I would absolutely love your feedback, and I personally engage with everybody on it. So when we talk about personal boundaries, one thing that came up with my clients was a male who was divorced, and he wanted to know what boundaries were. When I said it to him, he was kind of like foreign, and we started talking about what it looks like to have a fence around and what the rules are and how do you set those boundaries and what do they mean and what happens when somebody breaks them. The other conversation that I had was with another client of mine I've been seeing for a couple months now, and he set his boundaries and what they look like, and he said to me, he says, I don't think these boundaries fit me anymore. And I said, okay, change them. Why can't you change them? They're your boundaries. These are your rules. These are something you've put in place. And he just looked at me and said, no shit, that does make sense. Yeah, I mean, personal boundaries are what you define, what you create. It's what you're allowed to put out there for yourself. They're limits, they're rules, they're guidelines for individuals that they deemed what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, what is safe, what is not as safe. What do they consider respect? What do they consider not to be respectful? I've got men that say that, their wives walk all over them. And then when we start setting boundaries and push back, they just go, holy shit, my relationship changed, because they're finally standing up for themselves and they're not putting up with the bullshit of getting put down. If one of your personal boundaries is, I'm not going to allow anybody to call me a name, when somebody does, you just say to them, hey, I don't allow name callings. You warn them the first time. They do it a second time and say, hey, I've told you the first time. This is the second time. I'm not going to allow it. Third time happens. Now you have a decision to make. Are you going to allow it to continue to happen, or are you going to set a consequence? What that consequence is completely up to you. And it might be walking away, it might be not talking to them anymore, or it might just be telling them to fuck off. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's your personal boundary. You set it. What it looks like is completely up to you. What I may deem as respectful and accountable and everything else, you may not. So your personal boundary is going to look a lot different than what mine's going to look like. Your personal boundary is going to be set based off of your expectations, your situations, and your relationships. It's not going to be set off of mine. If I tell you what boundaries to set and you don't like them, you're going to tell me I'm an idiot. So again, I'm not here to give you advice. What I am here to do is help you define those boundaries. And I'm going to ask you questions like, what would it look like if you had a personal boundary? What are your best hopes from having that personal boundary? What happens if you set those personal boundaries? What do you hope that's going to happen by setting those personal boundaries? What does that personal boundary look like? What happens if somebody breaks it? What happens if somebody continues to break it and pushes? That's where the determinations, and that's where we're going to, figure out where things look good for you and what personal boundaries are. But again, like I said, I had that client come in I've been working with for a couple months, and he had that personal boundary set with his wife and the way she was treating him. And he set those, and he pushed back, and he told her especially what it looks like and what the consequences were going to be. And a couple times he had to enforce those consequences, and she stopped, and she's starting to change her behavior based off of those personal boundaries. Again, in another episode, we talk about you can't change other people's behaviors and actions, but you can only change your reaction to it. So if they want to continue to, call you names and act like an asshole, then you have a choice. You either tolerate it or you're going to put in a consequence. And what that consequence, again, like I said, looks like is completely up to you. But guys, you can define it. You can tell everybody about it. But when you change it and you redefine it, you got to let them know the new rules of what they are. Again, you might set up a boundary that's really wide, and next thing you know, you need it to dial it back in to be really small. Again, it's trial and error, but again, it's your boundary. You figure out what you want to do with it, what it looks like, what it's going to take to withhold it, and what you're going to allow and not allow. Again, safety boundaries. What do you feel safe in? What don't you feel safe in? Removing yourself from those situations. And again, if it's boundaries that, like I said, we're talking about emotional or mental space and things are just clusterfucked for you and you need to, step away from a situation, set that personal boundary that says, I'm only going to deal with this for 2 minutes, and then walk away after 2 minutes if things don't change. If you find out the next time that 2 minutes isn't working, cut it down to a minute. Again, it's your personal boundary, but as long as you set it, you hold it, and you maintain it, that's what matters. Boundaries are something that you set. They're not going to be set by anybody else because, again, like I said, if it's myself or your spouse that's setting them, they're not going to know what you truly need or want or what's going to be mentally stable for you, or meet your expectations. So set those boundaries. Don't be afraid to set those boundaries. Don't be afraid to put your foot down. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. If you don't advocate for yourself, nobody else is going to, and I don't care who it's with. If it's with your mother and you got to advocate and set a boundary that you're only going to talk to her once a day. If she's calling 10 times a day, you got to set that boundary. If it's your wife and she's texting 100 times a day and you're at work and you're starting to get in trouble at work, set the boundary that you can only respond to her every 30 minutes. Again, it doesn't matter. It sounds crazy. It sounds strange. It doesn't matter. It's your life. It's not mine. You're the one setting the boundary. Just because, you're going to text your girlfriend once an hour just to make sure she knows that you're safe and things like that, that's your boundary. But if she wants you to text every 30 minutes, you need to decide whether you're going to text every 30, you're going to deal with her getting upset, or you're going to set the boundary and the expectations that she knows what to expect moving forwards. Again, I'm Chris Kourtakis, like I said, licensed therapist in the state of Michigan. If boundaries are something that you need work with or need help with, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'd love to work with you. My style is a little bit different. I am more straightforward than most counselors. We get shit done. I work with high influential people. I work with doctors, lawyers. I work with VPs. I work with people that are educated. I work with people that have zero education but know how to get shit done and are high-achieving individuals. So if that sounds like you and you're having some issues setting some boundaries, reach out. But hope this video, again, encourage you to set those boundaries. What they look like and what's needed and not needed is directly up to you. So make it happen, guys. Set the boundaries. Stand up for yourself a little bit more. Put down in the comments after you've set that boundary what it looks like and what change has and what it's mattered to you.